Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're with the Skaven, going to be facing up against the Vampires, which is definitely one of the tougher matchups for the Skaven. They do have some nice tools in this matchup, but typically the Vampires have a lot of good counters to them. Let's go ahead and talk about things. Of course, for my army, I've got Lord Skrolk with an Assassin, as well as a Warlock Engineer. The Warlock Engineer, of course, is carrying Howling Warp Gale in case of Flying Lords, a Hellsteed, a Zombie Dragon, Terrorgeist, or so on. And we've also got the Warpstone Armor, just to give him a nice drain ability, make him a little more useful in general. For a front line, we've got Plague Monks with a meat shield of Skaven Slave Slingers out front. We've also got a Hell Pit Abomination, lots of Skaven Slave Spears, one unit of Poison Wind Globadiers, which with their magic damage are very useful against the Vampires in case of ethereal units, particularly Hex Wraiths and Cairn Wraiths will go down very quickly to the Poison Wind Globadiers. Warp Lightning Cannons also do magic missile damage, so they can be potentially very good here, although I haven't brought one in this particular match. Out on this flank, we've also got a Doom Wheel rolling away to go support these two Gutter Runners with poison. You can see they Vanguard deployed over here, where my opponent also vanguarded the Feasters of the Dusk, who unfortunately are blocking my path backwards. You can see my opponent's also got this mobile force here rushing in to try and run down these Gutter Runners. One unit of Black Knights, the Varix Reavers, Black Knights with Lances. These guys are some of my favorite heavy shock cavalry in the game. Of course, they've got regeneration, which makes them very formidable heavy shock cavalry. 110 armor, 60 charge bonus, a lot to like about them. The regular Sword and Board Black Knights have 30 melee defense, which is not too bad. Not a lot of charge bonus, but 38 weapon strength and 80 armor, as well as a shield, makes them pretty decent. They've also got a unit of Fellbats, looks like 2 units of Fellbats. For my opponent's main line here, he's got Crypt Ghouls, which are very good against the Skaven. They're relatively high DPS, damage dealer type infantry. They've also got poison attacks, 40 total weapon strength, very decent against the Skaven. He's also got Skeleton Warriors, looks like these are actually the Carstein Stalkers, Regiment of Renown, who of course have better combat stats, slightly better armor, and poison attacks. Graveguard, more Skeleton Warriors, looks like some more Graveguard here. And the Sternsmen anchoring the left flank. So these guys are very strong. Of course, regeneration, as a lot of the Vampire Regiments of Renown have, makes them very tanky. 51 melee defense as well as 90 armor makes them very, very tanky. They're very tough units. They can take a very, very tough beating. So in terms of taking a beating, talk about this guy. This guy is probably one of the tankiest characters in the game right here. Vlad von Carstein is an excellent pick against the Skaven. In my experience, with Chaos you want to take Big Bird, otherwise you want to take your tanky infantry lords like Vlad von Carstein, Morger, and so on. The tanky infantry lords are a lot harder to kill for the Skaven. Vlad himself does have the Hunger, which gives him regeneration. He also has the Blood Drinker weapon, which gives him more regeneration. In addition, I believe he also has the Carstein Ring, which is a one-time use 30-second, which is a long time in a battle. 90% damage resistance. That is, so basically he's going to take almost no damage during that time. Very powerful ability, only a one-time use, so you have to use it at the right moment in the battle, but still makes Vlad incredibly hard to kill. And of course, with the Vampires, you need to take out their leadership to negate their healing, and then the rest of their troops will crumble away. My opponent's also got a Banshee, which is a nice pick here, although the Skaven do have plenty of magic damage. Banshee is a bit of a hard target to hit with ranged units, so it makes her a little bit more survivable here. The Fear of Terror is very strong. Armor Piercing can be good at taking out Lords, Doom Wheels, or other high-value targets. So let's go ahead and kick things into full gear here. So we've got a pitched engagement developing out on this flank here, where we've got the Doom Wheel engaged with the Black Knights here. The Doom Wheel does deal armor piercing damage, so it is going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to these Knights here. Just trying to spring these Gutter Runners free. They're going to now be tossing in their Poison Shurikens here, and hopefully doing some damage into the back of these Black Knights and Bats. But the Doom Wheel in here, which is looking absolutely awesome, man. One of my favorite unit models in the game. It's definitely gonna take some damage here. Although none of these units have traditional armor piercing, just being saturated in all these opposing unit models is, over time gonna wear it down. So it does need to try and get out of here. Thankfully, as it rolls along, it is gonna shoot those armor piercing missile attacks out on the sides and in the front. So we'll be able to do some damage to those Black Knights while it tries to pull away. But meanwhile, the bats honestly would probably lose to my gutter runners. I could probably just park them here and take the bats in melee. I'm also moving my Hell Pit Abomination over to that flank to try and deal with some of those large targets. This is a pretty big mistake, though, that I'm going to come to regret later on in the battle. But just moving him out here to try and support on this fight because he has armor-piercing anti-large. He could potentially help take out these Black Knights. I also wanted him to get on this Banshee as well. Because I don't have a lot of great magic attack damage besides these Poison Globadiers, and they're going to have a hard time hitting a single model entity like the Banshee, I decided, you know what, the Hell Pit Abomination has, it's 500 total weapon strength, so it can potentially put a beating on the Banshee here. I was hoping the magic missile attacks from the Doom Wheel would actually pop off and hit the Banshee a couple times, but unfortunately it hasn't happened yet. So the Banshee's still very, very healthy, and it is a big danger. Meanwhile, my opponent's forces are advancing through the mire. I very much wish I had a Plague Claw Catapult at this juncture. I could be, doing some damage to some of these Grave Guards as they advance. I'm not too worried about the Skeleton Warriors. The Grave Guards are pretty tanky. My Plague Monks will be able to tear them down with a Wither and, their Frenzy and everything. But it's going to be tough, definitely, so... Out here, though, in front, my Skaven Slave Slingers are going to be doing some really nice damage to these Königstein Stalkers. They do only have 60 armor, but, advancing in all alone like this, they are going to take a bit of damage. Very nice for me. Meanwhile, I'm pulling back the Doom Wheel and these two Gutter Runners. The Doom Wheel's taking quite a bit of damage, and considering how much damage we were able to do to my opponent's forces, he's going to be able to heal and regenerate a lot of that back, so I really didn't get that good of value from that engagement. But meanwhile, in the mainline fight, the Meat Shield is doing their job of blocking the charge of my enemy, and we're going to be pushing up the Plague Monks through the rear. You can see they're kind of countercharging through the back of the Skaven Slaves here, and they're going to be able to get in here, and they'll do quite a bit of damage to the Skeleton Warriors. Graveguard are going to be a bit of a harder target. You can see we're dropping the Overcast Wither here, so those Graveguard are now down to only 30 armor, and they will be taking quite a bit of damage from the Plague Monks. So, meanwhile, in the back line here, my Poison Globadiers are just firing away at these bats. The bats should be coming down into combat with them shortly. The Banshee is still fighting this Hell Pit Abomination here, but honestly, this Hell Pit would be much, much more useful doing its armor-piercing damage to these Graveguard at this point. My opponent's also pulled around his heavy cavalry. You can see the Varix Reavers are mostly healthy at this point. They did pull up right in the range of the Poison Globadiers, which is definitely a mistake. They'll be able to throw in some Poison Globes and do some damage. But meanwhile, in the mainline fight here, we're not really doing as much damage as we need to, as quickly as we need to. The vampires are really starting to get into a bit of grind-out fight, which very much favors the vampires, so it's a bit of a tough situation at this point. We have got the Doom Wheel back in here, but my opponent's doing a good job using the Varix Reavers to block it up here. We have got the Liber Bubonicus on Vlad, which you can see is going to start to do a lot of damage to him. We're also going to get Skrolk and his assassin squad in on Vlad and try and take him down in melee. You can see Skrolk in here swinging his Plague Sensor around, doing some nice damage. But meanwhile, the Banshee has escaped the clutches of the Hell Pit Abomination. Going to be charging over into this flank. I'm trying to intercept it with the Doom Wheel. You can see that magic missile attack from the Doom Wheel actually does quite a bit of damage to the Banshee, but I don't want to just have the Banshee sit here and fight the Doom Wheel. We are getting a Plague Monk summon just to help support up on this hill here. These Feasters in the Dusk are definitely taking it to the Gutter Runners there, so we're going to rear charge them with the Plague Monks. Meanwhile, the Poison Wind Globadiers firing into the Varix Reavers there, and we've got the Hero Beatdown Squad on Vlad, but he does have the Carstein Ring active. I believe it was active. I think it just barely dropped off. But so he's going to be super tanky. You can see him in here kind of dueling Skrolk. Very, very cinematic stuff. But Vlad's going to be super hard to kill. You can see he's regenerating nicely, taking about 60% HP in damage, but upgraded Invocation of Nehek on top of his other healing. You can see him rapidly regenerating hit points there. Going to be very, very hard to bring him down. Meanwhile, over here, the grind is starting to favor the vampires. As you can see, most of the Skaven Slave fodder has routed off, unfortunately, and we're just left with the Plague Monks here. And with the Wither, they can definitely tear through the Graveguard, but right now they just they really don't have the armor piercing to get through these guys. And I have my Drain. You can see the Drain is affecting a lot of units here, which is really nice. That's why I bring the Warpstone armor. But the Drain is only affecting this flank, so on this flank these Plague Monks are eventually going to lose out. It'll take some time, but we are going to be trying to regroup some of these forces here. But the Sternsmen, you can see, have taken almost no damage here. They're actually still at full unit models, which means they'll be able to regenerate to 100% HP. Vlad himself is at his healing cap. He's regenerated a silly amount of damage. But meanwhile, up on this hill here, I have got my Doomwheel and Gutter Runners regrouping. We're going to be bringing them back down into the fight. The summoned unit of Plague Monks really not tearing through the Feasters in the Dusk like I wanted them to. They are going to win this fight eventually, but with the degeneration of summoned units, it's going to be tough for them. Finally, I'm bringing this Hell Pit Abomination over into this fight to support the duel. And a very brutal charge here, but I think it's a little bit too little too late. Also dropped a Plague Breath to time with the charge there, just to try and set some of these units into crumbling. But unfortunately, Vlad is still very, very healthy here. And despite the Hell Pit Abomination putting an absolute beating on him, he's not too afraid. He's still got plenty of armor, plenty of melee defense, very, very tanky character, even if he can't regenerate, and he's already used the Carstein ring. I just really don't have enough to bring him down at this point. You can see most of my support has collapsed, and it's just Skrolk fighting with the Hell Pit Abomination here. The Banshee, if she gets her paws on Skrolk, is probably going to terrify him away, and that'll be game over right there. So Banshee's getting some attacks on Skrolk, and Vlad as well, so they're kind of circle beating on him, and he does indeed get terrified. Balance of power shifting heavily in my opponent's favor. You can see he's still got a very healthy infantry core here of Graveguard, and I just have nothing left to take him down. The Doomwheel's gone. The Gutter Runners with Poison are still firing in here, but their leadership is very, very shaky, and Skrolk, I believe, actually went down here. Nope, he's still fighting away in there, but he's shattered at this point, and the the assassin here is going to shatter, and the Hell Pit, seeing his leadership run away, is also going to break and run. So, valiant defeat, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. Wanted to showcase that just because, again, up against the Skaven, that tanky infantry lord archetype is really, really tough to deal with, especially Vlad. Vlad is probably the tankiest of the tanky infantry lords, just super hard to kill. I mean, you guys saw he was able to get to his healing cap. We put a ton of damage on him. 2 Liber Bubonicus casts, and, you know, Skrolk and his assassin buddy beating on him the whole battle, and we still weren't able to take him down. It's just absolutely brutal. And because of that, he was able to put out a lot of healing. You can see we were able to deal mostly with the Graveguard and the Crypt Horrors, or sorry, not the Graveguard, the Skeleton Warriors and the Crypt Ghouls. But the Graveguard were just a little bit too tanky. High melee defense, high armor. They didn't get a whole lot of kills, but you can see my Plague Monks tore it up. 125, 156, 114. Most of that coming against Skeletons and Crypt Ghouls, but still, these guys are definitely great in this matchup. The Gutter Runners with Poison and the Doomwheel, I misused them a little bit. Even though the Doomwheel got an XP Chevron and 70 kills, I don't know that that was really the most effective use of it. My opponent was just able to pull back his heavy cavalry there and heal them. I should have just tucked up high and tight and just used the Gutter Runners to skirmish. Granted, I needed to do something to spring the Gutter Runners free, but after I had them free, I could have just skirmished away with the Doomwheel and not bothered to take the Hell Pit Abomination out there. I think it could have swung things in my favor if I had that Hell Pit doing armor-piercing damage in the front line, you know, and supporting. If he was able to support in that hero fight and help take down Vlad a little bit faster, we may have been able to work him down by the end of the battle there, by the late stages, in which case the vampire leadership would have crumbled. But it's hard to say, you know, it's definitely an interesting matchup. I may almost forego the Doomwheel and get a second Hell Pit. It's hard to say. Doomwheel's just so useful in so many ways. The Poison and Globadiers did some nice work there. I almost might bring another one, or perhaps a Warp Lightning Cannon to do some armor-piercing anti-large work. You know, it's tough to say, but I do like this build quite a bit. Skrolk himself getting 96 kills with some really nice Plague Breaths. And the Liber Bubonicus, of course, is excellent at taking down enemy leadership. I could have probably honestly cast one of those on the Banshee. If I had saved one for the Banshee, it would have probably one-shotted the Banshee, to be honest. I haven't tested that out, but I'd be curious to know if Liber Bubonicus, because it does a devastating amount of damage. Even to like a regular Lord, it'll do about half their HP in damage. And ethereal units typically tend to have less HP overall. So I'd be curious to see if the Liber Bubonicus can one-shot or close to one-shot a Banshee. That'd be interesting to test. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.